So this is the life of Charles Davis Smith.
When were you born?
27th of November 1928.
So you're about ready to celebrate your 93rd birthday.
Hopefully. Hopefully I make it.
Now, you were an only child, correct?
Only child.
Were your parents strict? What do you remember about growing up in their home?
About that, but I can tell you they was harsh, loving, and sweet and caring, and I couldn't ask for better parents.
What were your father and mother's names?
My dad's was Charles Everett Smith. Everybody called him Everett. My granddad was Charles Leon Smith. My great-granddad, going back, was Sylvester Simon Smith. And I was Charles David Smith. My mother was a foster. Her name was Mary Irene Foster Smith. I had three brothers. They grew up on the river. They had the Big Four community. On the weekends, Grandpa Foster, their dad put them to work on the farm and stay on the farm. So they rode their horses sometimes 12 miles from where they lived. My granddad owned the home right across from Senior Citizen on 1123 South 7th. And they would ride the Kingfisher, tie the reins up, hit the horse on the tail end. The tail end, and he'd go 12 miles back to the river where it came from, down the road by himself. Before my folks ever got married, they had bought little sections of this Indian land, but they bought the house, but they went in and painted and fixed the house up for their home. They went to El Reno to get married. They forgot their papers, so they had to drive back to Kingfisher, get what they needed, and then go back and get married. My dad was always, and my mother, just honey of people to be around. And they spoiled me and not let me get by the murder sometimes.
Did you have a dog growing up?
We had lots of dogs. Sister was our chow dog. I can't remember the little chihuahua we had. We had lots of dogs. A lot. Whenever I was young, I still have it, but whenever I was young, I caught a baby skunk, and I went and had him deodorized. and I kept him for a long time, you know. I had a little pony, you know, little Shetland pony that fighting his meanest little devil. Rode him over here and threw a string out and put a horseshoe or no boat on it, and maybe a little fish net, and come over after school and see if it caught any fish back here behind the creek. I lived a half mile down the road.
How old were you then? In grade school or?
Probably 13. I grew up in 28, and the electricity came on in 39, and that was a big thing. Where we turn water on, go to the bathroom, turn the flush the stool on. We had telephones, every man for himself, because each group of farmers took care of their own phone. That was a tough deal. Say that after so long the line starts falling down and everything else, somebody's got to take care of it. Or there's no telephone company to call.
Oh, wow.
So you got electricity. We didn't have no electricity till about 1939. Before that, whenever we wanted ice, we went to the ice plant down by the swinging bridge, and we always bought a check ice for 50 cents or something like that, and put it in our ice box. Most people had a drain.
Where did you go to the bathroom?
Outside the little wooden house In 1939, along in there, whenever we got water, electricity. Man, if you don't think that isn't something, whenever you get running water in your home, and you know, you can't imagine. You either got to have a bedpan if you want to get up in the night or something like that. It's not very fun to go outside.
It must have gotten pretty cold in the winter to
Yes.
if you chose to go out there.
Pretty cold.
Where did you go to high school?
Up here at Kingfisher High School.
And who were your very best friends during those years?
Corky Slack and Marvin Barrett and Jerry Pillman and Jerry Francis was our special friend. Margie Farham. Young Ken Marcus was an extra good friend.
What do you remember about growing up and going to school in Kingfisher?
99% of the people was poor, 1% was rich. Nobody had any money, everybody was on equal terms. And everybody was happy and had food to eat and everything, but you didn't have no money to do anything. Just had a few cows, milk cows. They might have a hog that they'd always put their chicken. Here comes the postman delivering the mail. Lots of times they'd have a box of chickens, babies, little babies. They might have come from Missouri. And everybody had a brooder house. Everybody had a brooder house for raising chickens. That was a big thing. Whenever I was in high school, you'd go up to the parking lot. Nobody had any cars. No cars. We had a few Catholics that had cars. Once in a while, my dad let me drive his pickup. He let me put one of those knobs on there. And I thought I was in heaven, you know. I ain't got no Indian kind of like it, but he let me go down my. Nobody had any cars, I can tell you that. And I could tell you that every day went with Clarence Shilton, and he had his dad's nice Buick car. We would rush down and get a great big chunk of malt and an Echo sack of crackers. Those little old crackers. Gobble them down, head to the pool hall, play a fast game of pool, and try to get back to class before the bell rang. Senior trip, we went to down by the Texas line. I can't think where everybody goes. When we went on our junior and senior trip, we went in the back of a cattle truck with hay, bales stacked all around it. We sat on the back of the end of the cattle truck full of hay. That was it. And I can remember the first car. It was a 1942 Ford 6-cylinder. It was right in the wartime, and you couldn't get. I was 17 years old. That was in 1946.
Did you ever have a Jeep?
Yeah, I had a Jeep. I forgot about an Army surplus Jeep that I bought. I had a lot of fun with.
What color?
Yellow with red wheels. I'd take it out and park it at the show on a Sunday afternoon out in front. And whenever I would come back, it didn't have no cab on it. You know, I mean, just it's a surplus Army. You know, you could put it in neutral. You could put it anywhere you want to. Well, I'd come back out after the show. It might be up next to the theater box. They'd jump it out off the curb and put it up on the sidewalk.
Who would do that?
Oh, just a bunch of under boys in there. During the war year, and we're talking about the war started in 41, lasted 41, and went to 45. And you couldn't hire anybody for anything. It was either had to be some dumb kid that didn't know nothing, or some old broken down man that the house was no good. Everybody's an Army. I worked at Safeway grocery store in the wintertime for a couple of winters. And what I really did like is working on a thrashing machine crew. That's whenever they go out there and swath her off and put a string around her and put it in shock. Take the bundles and put it in shock. And then you got a team of horses in the bundle wagon and pick them up and throw them through, they go through the thrashing machine. It makes a big pile of straw. And I loved that, right out in the middle of the grain field.
And you guys would get all itchy and...
Oh, they itch. Go swimming every night, you know, in the pond, get rid of that itch, oats itch. See, I was in reserves when I was in college, and I went to Tinker Field every month in Oklahoma City. And so, after quite a while, the Korean War called everybody up all over the whole country. And I went to service, and I went to El Paso. And so I was at El Paso for a while, and they put me in they had about 4 supplies. One took care of beds and bedding, and you can't imagine how much bedding and stuff. After that, they sent me to school to Cheyenne, Wyoming, 4 months. Well, I called the first sergeant up and tell him they'll give you so many days travel time. That'd be from Cheyenne back to El Paso. And then I tell him I want a 3-day pass. I had that on there. So then I'll get about 10 days off to come home. So about a few months later, they sent me to school again. This time I go about 4 months to Denver, Colorado. After about 4 months or something in Denver, I go to cold sun up in winter. Get up in that night, march to breakfast, march here and there, snow on the road. It's a jinx. Anyway, then we got out of that place and I went back to El Paso. And it wasn't too awful long, then I went to England. I got to do for the plane, the advance party was setting everything up in England for our whole wing, 45 bombers. They were out in the middle of the deal and their plane crashed, and all that was left was the tail of their plane. The plane burned clear up, but they didn't kill anybody. And I think they had 20-some air bases, American fighter and bomber stuff in England at that time. This is 1952, during the war was over.
What was your rank in the military?
I started out as a corporal, got a corporal, but then I went to a sergeant, and then I went to staff sergeant.
What was your military ID?
AF 183739. Sir.
You were a farmer and rancher.
Yes.
And
We kept getting a little bit more land. We had an old tractor, some old 30-something tractor, 40s. I left to run an old 1934D John Deere tractor. 1934D, and that was the love of my life, nearly. It had a little pet country on each side, and set your children a little bit, give her a flip that round deal, she'd just pop right off, and it was, it had a low and a high. It had 2 gears, the old jumper. And the high was 4 miles an hour. And going down the road. So it was kind of interesting. I loved that old tractor. So
how many acres of land did you farm?
we farmed 2,400 acres to wheat.
And how many cattle?
Oh, sometimes we run 1,000 or 1,100. You know, some bunches. We had two big 4-wheel drive John Deere tractors. So I had one, and my hard man had one. We had good time. Everything went good. I enjoyed farming all through the years until I kind of got, I don't know whether I got burned out or lazy, maybe just lazy.
And you leased some land from the Indians, correct?
Lots of, we leased lots of land.
Do you have any exciting stories about dealing or working with the Indians, the Cheyenne Arapaho Indians?
Well, you always try to make a 5-year lease with them. And when you made a 5-year lease, you had to have, when it come time for the release in 5 years, you better have some money back for them without a lease, that new 5-year lease without, or you're not going to get any new lease. We had some Indian land 50 years, some more. We had Indian land, we started out with 6 people and ended up the same bunch, like 50-something, with, there was 300 and some people. Now those 6 people, they multiplied to 300 and something. One time we had some of the nicest, sweetest Indian ladies and really good, but sometimes it wasn't bad, but maybe we had like an old, I call her squaw. She just opened the back door and decided to use Mother Nature. Just opened the door and go to TT, just TT right out the back, the back door. So you got into the Indian deal, you got into a little of everything, you know. Eagle Nest was one family we had over 50 years, and they was, no man, he wore real long braids, and he couldn't speak English, and he always used a thumbprint. He couldn't write, and so he used one of those pads, and he put that on the lease, and his mark, and that would be his deal.
You built this house 56 years ago in 1965. How much did it cost back then?
I think maybe 40 or 40 something. Back then it was $10 and a half to $15 a square foot. You know.
Well, then I know you love wildlife, and you've fed as many as 175 turkeys
Yes.
at a time. A lot of people are curious about how many years you've been putting out corn and sunflower seeds for wildlife.
I don't know, but I really enjoyed it. And I used to see more deers and more turkeys. You know, you heard me say I've seen 150 or 175 deer or turkey. And same way with lots of coons. You know, we've seen 10 or 15 coons at a time. And so we had.
Well, Ned, I know you loved Mother. What did you value most about Mother?
Honesty, sweetness, fun. She could do more fun things. She liked to stand on her head. She liked to put her nose, you put your nose up to your
Touch your tongue.
Tongue up to your
tongue
nose.
to her nose.
Yeah. Maybe there'd be opening a Christmas. She'd have a big empty Christmas box. She'd be in the Christmas box.
And she could really sound just like Donald Duck too.
And
Well,
your mother was no foolishness, no drinking, no smoking. She could blow good smoke rings.
but she didn't believe in drinking or smoking.
She wasn't much of a 10-foot pole. Being up for your mother getting married was a pretty big thing in my life.
You would say, looking back over your nearly 93 years, that meeting Mother was perhaps the happiest moment in your life.
Most of the time. No, it was. I dated around a lot of girls. Might have dated as many as 8 in El Reno. I dated girls that right and left. Whenever I got out of high school, I didn't go to college for 2 years. I went to OSU, but waited 2 years till I got a little bit of money and a little bit of get up and go, you know. I met Patsy, these different girls that I was dating. One was Joyce Johnson. Joyce Johnson was riding home in Patsy's old 1946 Plymouth. Joyce Johnson wanted to come see me, and Patsy was driving. Come by the check wagon, found an old beer joint. And that's where the first time I met Patsy. And so about 2 weeks later, I called her up at college at dormitory, and we hooked up. Probably 8 months later, we got married.
Well, now you and Mother were married in 1953, and how many children did you guys have?
4. We've got 12 grandchildren and 21 great-grandchildren. We got 3 new ones, getting ready to have the 4th one. It just in the last year and some.
How many total right now and before the 3 that are coming?
I don't know, about 50. I'm not sure myself. About 50. Yeah.
And what do you remember about raising children?
That I probably didn't do as good a job as I should. I should have spent more time. I was zeroed in on wheat and cattle and money and I guess business more than I was children. And I should have spent more time with my children.
What did you enjoy most about marriage and family?
Just proud of my kids and proud of my family and get them all decked up going to church on Sunday and how pretty and cute they looked. And
What are some of the most important life lessons that you've learned in nearly 93 years?
keep your word good. Be honest. Try to be a good Christian. Respect family and respect your word. Your word. You want to keep your word. Tell somebody you're going to do it. Do your best. Do whatever you tell somebody you're going to do.
What would you say you're most proud of in your lifetime?